Hey, this is Andrew Kearns, and today we are learning 6 steps to get the color tones that you want in Lightroom. We're going to go through step by step to go from this to this. It's easy to follow along, and we'll get right into it after a quick plug. At the time this video is being posted, Wildest is having a sale. It's called the Wildest Pass, where you can get access to all of their courses for a whole year. That's 21 courses with several hours of instruction, all taught by incredibly talented artists. I've taught 2 courses with them myself, and you'll get access to those, as well as all the other courses for a year for the price of $3.99. And they've never done something like this, so get it while it's hot. And if you're watching this after the fact, you can still get any of the courses linked below. And with that, let's get into the edit. I went ahead and did a small bit of editing on it just to start. Here's the before, here's the after. All I did was just in this panel here. And then the first thing you want to do when you start toning the image is hit the white balance tool. If there is something that is very white in the image, for instance her shorts, I will take this tool right here and I'll click on that and boom. So that's before, that's after. Then I'll come into the temperature as well as the tint and just using the up and down arrow to see what I like. After I've done that, I'll go into the HSL panel, which the shortcut is Command 3. To give you an example here, if I slide the blue slider left and right, you see it affects all the blues in the image, especially her sweater or her shirt there. But what you can also do is click this button, then target the shirt like that. And so as you can tell, it's now affecting a little bit of the purple as well as the blue because there is some purple value in that shirt. And you can do this with the saturation as well. See, it takes all the blue out of the image and as well as the luminance. Pretty sweet. The shortcuts I'll be using here is Command-Alt-Shift-H for hue, S for saturation, L for luminance. We'll start off in the luminance, so Command-Alt-Shift-L and target her shirt. You can see it's also targeting everything in the back here, so just be mindful of that. We'll go Command-Alt-Shift-H, and same thing, target the shirt here. I'm going to click on it. Make it more of like a blue rather than a purple, so that was the before. That was after dragging it down a little. I like that. I'm going to go back into Command-Alt-Shift-L and target Julia's skin. So just making her skin brighter there. Not too much, very subtle. I'm going to go Command-Alt-Shift-H and target this foliage in the background. And you can see it's more of a yellow tone, and I just want to be careful and make sure it's not affecting Julia's skin. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to just drag and just see if it's affecting it. It's not too bad, but you can see it on this right here and some of her skin. So I'm going to zoom back out, Command-Z, and just be very subtle with this so I don't overdo it. I think I want it to be more warm, almost matching her skin tone. So yeah, that's before, that's after. It's pretty solid. And the last thing we'll do on this panel is Command-Alt-Shift-S to target saturation. And we're just gonna click on her skin and desaturate her skin very slightly. That's with HSL off. That's with it on. And then from here, I might just go back to the white balance, see if I want to change anything in that. Maybe make some small adjustments as I move through these panels and these steps. But with that, let's go into the next one, which is calibration. The calibration panel is a very global focused panel, meaning it'll edit everything in the entire image, but it's extremely useful. I don't really have a system with using it, but we'll start with the shadows here. And as you can see, if I drag them left, it turns more green, and to the right, it turns more pink or magenta. So just find happy medium of what I want here. I think I like the magenta a bit more. I'm gonna come down to the blue. I guess I do have a little system here. I usually start at the blue down here and then work my way up. You can see it really affects not just the blue, but all the blue values in the image, I guess is the best way to explain it, because even this green has some blue in it and it's gonna affect the hue of that as well. So I usually keep things pretty subtle in here. One thing I do notice usually is the blue usually saturates the skin the most. Don't really know the science behind that, but it just is what it is. So that's pretty solid. This is with it off. That's with it on. It It's pretty subtle, but it does warm up those greens a little bit, and it does make the image look a bit more cohesive. And then of course I try to go and just do small adjustments in all the other ones after going through each panel. So maybe go back to the HSL panel, desaturate her skin a little bit, take the luminance, Command-Alt-Shift-L on the leaves. Cool. The next panel we'll be looking at is right here, the color grading panel. You can hit Command-4 or click on it. This is another global adjustment panel, meaning it will affect the entire image. We'll focus on the highlights here, and what this is going to do is if we put color like right here, we want green in the highlights like that, boom, there's green in the highlights like that. So pretty cool. That's a little overdone. I think I want to add some warmth to the highlights. And remember, it's affecting the entire image here. I like that look right there, and a couple shortcuts for this one. If you click and drag, it's a bit wild, so I like to hold Alt to slow it down. And then you can hold Command and it stays in this circle like this. And then if you hold Shift, it stays in a line like that. But we'll go back to that right there. I think that looks good. And then I want to look at the shadows here. I'm going to go a bit light on the shadows because I will actually do a bit of that in the next one, which is the tone curve panel. So I might just add a touch of warmth in there. Maybe blue. We'll kind of go around the circle here holding Command. A lot of this is just dragging it and seeing what you like, hitting Command Z to undo it, Command Shift C to redo. It's just a lot of poking around and seeing what's up. We'll look at the midtones here as well. I'm going to click on it and drag it about. I think I'm going to keep it more subtle. So this is with the color grading, and that is without it. You can see a pretty big change there. It really added a lot to the image. I'm pretty pleased with that, and all I really did was just add this warmth in this orangish red area. Another key part of this panel is these sliders right here. So if you drag that up for the midtones, you can see it affects a lot of the midtones. Same with the highlights. I want to undo that, and then also with the shadows. So you can find a nice happy medium of what you may want. I don't want to overdo it, but I will mess around with it a little bit. There's also blending and balance down here. I don't use blending too often, but I do like balance. The balance here, most of it is just orange. So like let's say you had more blue in the shadow, it'll affect how the blue sort of leaks into the midtones and the highlights, and vice versa, how the highlights and midtones are overtaking more of the shadows. So I'm going to undo all that and leave it as is and just mess with the balance to see if there's something I like. Cool. I think that looks good. This is with it on, and this is with it off. Quite a big difference from the color grading panel. And like always, before I move on to the next panel, I'm just going to do a bit of touching up here. So I'm going to go to the basic panel, bring up the exposure and the shadows just a bit. Nothing too crazy. Another thing is the lens correction. The vignette is pretty hard, so I'm going to take it off and then add a little bit back in. All I'm doing there is just fixing the lens correction. It can see what I shot this on, and it can judge how it should change the vignette. I personally like to keep a little bit of the vignette in. We'll put it right there at 42. So that's without it, that's with it. Maybe bring some of that distortion back in too. It seems like it just targets the subject very well. I'm going to do a bit of lighting control here. I'm going to hit the M key to open up the gradient filter. I want to run a dark one down low in the corners. Maybe this one actually from the side. And then one up top. Keep it subtle, like just 0.2. That's with the gradient filters, and that's without it. So just a little touch up in between each panel. I'm going to make this one a little more subtle, and we'll move on to the next panel. So after we're done at the color grading panel, we're going to move into my favorite panel, which is the tone curve. You can hit Command 2 to open that up. You have the main channel, the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel. We're going to start in the main one, and that's going to affect the exposure. Similar to the color grading panel, if you click and drag, it's going to go a bit wild. So I like to click and hold Alt and drag. Keeps it a bit more chill. And if you hold Shift, it drags it on that up and down line, no matter where you move your mouse. So pretty handy. I'm going to start by alt-clicking a point right here, and I'm just going to push it up, holding Shift and Alt at the same time to keep it subtle. I'm also going to go down here and just bump up all the shadows and the lower midtones here. And bringing down the shadows a bit there. Maybe that's too much, but I'm going to come back here and then push this back up. Again, I'm just holding Alt and Shift the entire time here. I don't really let those go. As I hold Alt Shift, you see it flattens that white. I usually like to have that so it doesn't seem like it's bleeding into the background of my website, which is a white background. So I'm going to push this top dot up a bit. I'm going to put one right here. I'm going to drag this down to flatten those whites. Once again, I'm going to click this one right here, just bump it up a little bit. So what this is doing is creating a flatter look to the image, which is just a style I personally like. I'm going to zoom out a little bit and I'll turn it off here and then back on. It's just a little more flat, a little less contrasted in the sky and the background. I'm going to leave that as is, and then we'll jump into the red, green, and blue channel. I'll explain what these do here. If you click on the blue and you push it up, it's going to add blue into the image, and if you bring it down, it's going to take it away, adding yellow into the image. In the green, same thing, green, then magenta, red, same thing, red, and then this cyan color here. And just like the main channel here, if we target right here, it's going to target those upper midtones and not really affect the shadows down here, as you can see. Same thing with these individual color channels. If I target these highlight area right here, it's going to target that, and it's not going to so much target down here in the shadows. So bear that in mind as you make points and move them around. With the tone curves, it comes down to your taste, and for me, I like to have a little bit of warmth in the shadows, so I'll come into the blue channel. I like to create 3 points on my curves usually, and I have one up here that's targeting more of the highlights, one right here targeting more of the midtones, and one right here targeting the shadows. Like I said, I like warmth in my shadows, so I'm going to take some blue out of it. That looks pretty good. And then maybe to contrast against that, I'll put a little bit of blue in the highlights here. That's looking good. And then I'll just blast through these other two and see if there's anything I like. That's looking good. So in the green panel here, I took out a little bit of green, making the shadows more magenta. In the red curves panel, I didn't do too much other than in the highlights. I added some cyan in, taking some red away. So here's the photo with the curves panel on, and there it is with it off. You can see a massive difference. I think it's one of the most powerful tools in Lightroom, and of course I'm going to go through all the other panels, just do some small adjustments before going on. I'm going to hit Shift M to bring up the radial filter. I'm going to target Julia's face here. One thing you can do is hit the O key to see where it's targeting. I don't want this exposure on it. I'm actually going to decontrast it a little bit, as well as sharpen it. That looks pretty good. The reason I'm doing that is because before, her face was just getting a little contrasted with shadows and colors and all this stuff affecting it. And then when I add that in, it just brings your focus to Julia a bit more by sharpening it, and it also helps just with skin tone and shadow by decontrasting. I'm going to go into the HSL panel. I'm going to target her skin, Command-Alt-Shift-H, and click, and just drag and see if there's a skin tone that I like better. I don't think there's anything wrong with it right now, but just see if there's something. That looks good. I'm going to go Command-Alt-Shift-H again on the blue. Just mess with it a little bit. Maybe make it a little more that color, like a little more on the cyan side. And then Command-Alt-Shift-S, and then take out some saturation there. That's looking real good. Command-Alt-Shift-L. Just seeing if that looks any better or not. Maybe like a little lower. Cool. That's looking good. The last panel we'll get into is the brush tool here. It is one of the best tools for local adjustments. In fact, it is the tool to target anything you want and change it however you want. So let's say I'm not a big fan of the blue sky. Like in this photo, I actually do like it, but let's say I wanted to remove it. I'm going to take the brush tool and paint everywhere in the photo except for Julia. As I'm painting, I can hit the O key to turn off and on that red bit so you can see where you're painting. And then you also have this tool right here, this auto mask. You see as I painted over these blues, it didn't actually hit them. You can turn on and off auto mask as you please with the A key or just click it. But I'm just going to paint all this real quick by speeding it up. One thing to show real quick, I accidentally just made a stroke across her shirt here, and since I'm targeting the blues, I do not want to target the shirt. I'm going to hit the Alt key and you see this comes up. I'm also making it bigger by scrolling up and down on my mouse pad. But if you hold the Alt key, it turns into a minus, and you can just paint right over it. Make sure to check if your auto mask is on and off as you are using this one as well, whether you're adding more brush or taking it away. All right, that looks good. As you can see, most of that's targeted there. So what I'm going to do after having it selected is I'm just going to come down here to this range mask tool, and I'm going to select the color, and I'm going to select this color picker right here and just click on this blue. And so if I hit the O key, now you can see it's really just targeting the blue. There's this slider right here they call amount. All that does is just kind of go back and forth. I don't really know exactly what it's doing, but I usually add a little bit in to sort of feather it. Once you have those blues selected, you can just take the saturation and take it right down. And let's say you want to add warmth, you can just add some of that in the temperature, and it does so. So I'll turn that off and then back on. Again, I think I kind of like the blue in the photo, but I don't think I like it as heavy as it is originally. So I'm just going to take a little bit out, mess with these sliders here and see if there's something I like. One other way to affect the tone is this color box right here. So you click the color box, and I want to change those greens to, or those blues to like magenta or something. Boom, you can see that pop in, and again, it is just affecting that area. It's not affecting Julia because I didn't paint over her. Obviously that looks terrible, so we're going to undo that, but we might try to find a happy medium here of something we like. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to turn that off and then back on. You can see it's doing a bit of work there. And what I did there was just do actually quite a bit of slider work here. And again, the most important thing is just targeting that color with this color picker. We are looking at just this area and we're targeting only those blues. So pretty clutch. So with that, that was the last panel. But of course, I'm going to go back through and just do some minor adjustments here and there throughout all the other panels in Lightroom. I'm going to go Command-Alt-Shift-H to target these leaves or twigs again, make them a little more green. That's going to create a nice complementary tone between her skin and the tree behind her. And I'm going to also target her skin here, Command-Alt-Shift-H still. I'm going to go target her shirt with the hue, maybe bring it even more cyan. I'm going to go Command-Alt-Shift-S to target the saturation over her shirt. Just trial and error here. I don't think I like that, so there we go. That's pretty solid. So that's with just a few minor adjustments here. So this is with the white balance on. This is with the HSL panel. Here's the calibration panel. Here's the color grading panel, the tone curve, and then the brush tool. Boom. And then a before and after for you, straight down the middle and side by side. And that's my step-by-step method on how to get the color tones I would want in Lightroom. Take what you like, leave what you don't, and yeah, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and leave any feedback in the comments. Thanks.